Hello everybody, my name is Rodgon. I'm an artist, a teacher, a designer, a mentor, and everything in between. And today I'm going to show you guys how to draw something cool. So today's topic is going to be one that was mentioned by one of you guys in the chat. You guys mentioned this in one of my YouTube videos, so I felt inclined to actually respond to it and make sure that I made a video of it. So, what was the question? Well, the question was, how do you add perspective to the elements around your characters? Let's say that you actually went out and you designed a cool character. I don't know, in this case, my little Vicky right here is just chilling, just power posing, doing something right here. What if I wanted to add an actual background to this though? What if I wanted to actually find the perspective to be able to match elements? Well, the elements that you're going to be looking at the most are going to be the flat perspective of your feet. The perspective of your feet is going to tell you where everything else is going to be positioned. So the moment that you find your feet, you can start finding parallel lines that go along with where your character is grounded. And I'm going to explain this to you guys in a way that makes sense to you, and I'm going to explain to you guys a couple different ways you guys can go about it, and how we can use our basic shapes and our anatomy that we've learned to be able to make this a little bit easier, to make it a little bit easier to be able to ground our characters so that we can actually draw them doing anything we want. Making them feel like they're actually grounded is going to be incredibly helpful, especially for you character designers and storyboard artists out there that are looking to improve your storytelling and you just want to take it to the next level. So if you guys are going to be joining us today for our lesson, you guys know what to do. You guys know. If there's 272 people of you in here, there's almost 300 of you guys in here. And there's only 2 shares. Wow, there's only 2 little shares. That is sad. If you guys do not know, that is the cost of entering my classes. If you guys want to, or if you guys are on YouTube, if you guys want to help and be able to be a part of growing this, if you guys are watching this on YouTube, subscribe. Make sure to subscribe and like the video so I know that you guys are actually enjoying them. If you guys are watching this on TikTok, make sure to share the stream because that is going to be the key factor here in growth. This is how you help me. This is how you make me feel all happy and warm inside. And then if you guys send things like roses and donations, please wait until there's a break in between our sets or just talking monologues. Wait until the mid break so that I can add your guys' gift little emoji, and then I can make little emojis for you guys at some point. So thank you. We're gonna have this guy be bald. That's his emoji. Okay. So let's start with our actual lesson, and thank you guys so much for sharing the stream. If we can get up to if we can aim for 70 shares, that'd be amazing. And if we can aim for about 10,000 hearts, I know you guys will crush those numbers in a second. So while we do that, while we get to those numbers, I'm going to teach you guys something cool, something awesome. And I'm going to make it about, what have I been practicing lately? So let's look back at my lessons that I've been doing on my own. So there's a bunch of things that I have come across that have helped me a ton. Okay, so I'm going to give you guys a basic exercise that I've been doing lately, and it's something that you guys can use to practice while we get to those numbers. So if you guys want to get better at perspective, draw your shapes like this, right? Even the shapes that are let's say we're going to draw a happy face. When you're following your shapes, especially when they're round, follow your guidelines and draw a simple face. a very simple face. Don't complicate it. And see how much you actually understand how to rotate a simple face. If you can do that very easily with a sphere and just a little happy face, then start going into slightly more complicated angles by adding an extra division. Now you have one going up and down, and you have one going across. So the one going across could possibly be the eye line, and then the other one will be just the general front. So now that the eye line is up, I'm going to move my eyes up. When I have my eyes down, I'm going to rotate that down, and I'm going to make my eyes down. And then you can go in anywhere in between. So now this one's going to be with a circle going up and 3/4. And you guys get the idea. So exercises like this that make you like understand just basic direction of your faces can help you with a lot of things. It can help you with understanding how things are viewed in 3/4 a little bit better. So things like eyes and stuff like that are going to be a little easier. Okay? Things like mouths are going to be a little easier because you're going to be seeing roundness. You're going to start seeing things a little bit different, like the rib cage. Maybe you start doing that with the rib cage as well, because it's an easy shape, right? An easy shape that you can rotate around is always going to be very beneficial for you. So that exercise alone is worth its weight in gold. So do this often, and do this until you realize the angles that you guys do not know. And once you get to those angles, now proceed to adding detail and see at what point you fall off and you don't know what you're doing anymore. And that is how you essentially learn how to draw things from all different angles. We learn with baby steps, and then we go and we measure out where our skill set like tops out at. And then you just continue until you refine the things that you are missing. That is just the basic premise of how you learn as an artist. So, did we break the... Yep, we got to the shares and we got to the likes. Okay, cool. So now let's move on to our actual lesson for today, which is going to be adding perspective to your character surroundings. And while I let you guys go grab your sketchbook, because for today, I want you guys to draw along with me. So what you're going to need is going to be something to draw on, aka a sketchbook. You're going to need something to draw with, aka a pencil, a pen, a crayon, anything of the sort, anything that writes. Okay, so you can grab any of that stuff. And you're not going to really require much knowledge about anything. I'm going to try to explain everything from scratch. So even down to the perspective that you're going to be using to draw your characters. So don't worry so much if you guys don't understand too much about drawing. I will help you guys out through this. That is my job. That is what I do. So let me put the fan on because this is incredibly warm inside my room. But I'll be back in a second. Okay, we have the fan. We're not, dude, what part of like me literally doing this makes you think that I'm going to take your life? No. Okay, so let's take a sip of coffee. Sweet, sweet nectar of life. And then let's begin. So let's say you have a really cool character and you want to start adding really cool elements. Like, I don't know, trash cans, and you're in an alleyway and you want to add like little things like to it, but you want to make it match. You want to make it look like it's part of the same scene, right? How do you go about making it look like so when you don't really understand, like you're not doing like a perspective plane and stuff like that? So how are you figuring all this stuff out? Well, that is going to come down to your posing when it comes down to your character. Your character is going to have to be based on actual perspective in order to do this. So we're going to focus mainly on one element of the actual body, which is going to be how the feet connect with the ground. So if, for example, we have a character that connects like this, the perspective plane in which this foot is leads you down to have this sort of flooring. But if the character's foot was like this, then this is flat completely. And there's literally very little perspective that you go about it. So these 2 feet have 2 very different perspective points, even though they still look like they're both grounded in the same perspective. This one has a flat horizon line, and then this one's horizon line is all the way up here. So whenever you draw objects in this foot's perspective, you're going to draw them with a slight upper angle. When you draw things for this angle, you're going to essentially be drawing with most of the elements being on top of the perspective point. So from here, let's say you have like an umbrella or something like that sticking out, you are going to see the umbrella going into the tub, as opposed to from this angle, you would see it coming out from the tub. So the perspective that you choose to ground your character in is going to be a very important factor. So how do we do that? How do we work on that? How do we make our actual characters have a very cool perspective? A lot of us have a very basic understanding of posing. So a lot of our poses tend to be very frontal viewed. You know, we don't really have like much to it. Even if we do know a lot of anatomy, most of our posing ends up in this sort of situation. We're not going to focus on arms because they're not really needed for this. So whenever we have a character like this, it's very easy to just set the horizon line right here and then just draw our objects coming up from here, whatever it is that we draw in the background, like trees and stuff like that. Like the person requested that we draw trees as well. So your basic shapes consist of everything, right? So your imagination and your ability with the pen and your utensil that you have in your hand is what's going to give you the ability to see a deeper level of these shapes. So I'm not magically coming up with these lines. I'm seeing cylinders. So what I'm seeing is one big cylinder, right? That is the idea behind the tree. And then what I'm seeing is little cylinders on top of it that change in shape. That is what I'm seeing when I'm drawing this. So when this gets simplified and you only see some of the lines, it ends up looking like wood grain. It ends up looking like wood, like trees. So when you think about your basic shapes, you also can use that to create your plants, your trees, your foliage, all that stuff as well. Yeah, all these lives tend to end up in YouTube. So if you guys want to go like check out some other themes, there's a gigantic amount of videos now. I think the last time I recollected, there's like over 300 videos now. So if you guys want to go and explore whatever theme you guys want, we talk about everything. So there's more than enough videos for you guys to go check out. So when we come to our actual characters, if we draw our characters flat onto a basic flat perspective plane with our feet flat, well, then you're only going to be able to technically see that perspective. We don't get to have any depth or play around with the background because you're drawing it on a flat line, essentially making this the horizon line. So if anything was drawn in, then you would have like some of them going up, some of it going down. So it just makes for like not that interesting of a scene or anything. Okay. So there's a place and a use for it, but it's not necessarily something that we want to focus on when it comes down to character design. When it comes down to character design, we want something more akin of a forced perspective. So we want some elements going on the upper part of the horizon line, and we want some elements going on the bottom part of the horizon line. Most of the time, we want our feet to be on the bottom because we need to have a shape to be able to plant on the ground. Okay. You need a shape to be able to plant it, and it just has a lot more depth when you point it in a perspective that looks more like this. Now, when you're looking at the upper body, it's a little bit more common to be looking at it from the bottom a little bit. For the upper body. And then whenever you start combining them with like, this body is complete, let's make the legs longer. Even longer. Okay. So we have our rib cage that's pointing up. We have our legs that are pointing down, and thus creating this sort of like shape with our perspective, with our character. Okay. Half of it is pointing up. Half of it is pointing down. And whatever styling you choose to give it, that's up to you. It could be realism, it could be cartooning, it could be chibi, it could be whatever you want. But as long as you keep it like that, it's going to give you an interesting sort of perspective. So let's talk about more. Let's draw an actual character. I'll just draw a quick little character, and then we'll start positioning everything around him. We're gonna draw him not thinking about what elements are gonna be around him, and we're just gonna fixate a background based on the perspective of our character. So let's start with a character. Maybe he's gonna be looking up. He'll draw a chin. We're gonna make it so the proportions give him a big head because I just like those proportions. I'm going to draw my collarbone on my rib cage. My rib cage is going to be part of my beanbag. My beanbag is going to give me my hip bones. Then my hip bones are going to tell me where my legs are going to come out from. Let's make this an interesting pose. Let's just make it into like a super dynamic pose. Legs out. Power stands, and feet. I'm going to adjust the head a little bit because now I don't like it there based on the actual body. So I'm going to move it down a little bit. Remember, sketch lines are just sketch lines. They're not meant for like, like it's not a final say whenever you draw something. Right? If you draw something and you don't like it or something changes within your drawing, you're not obligated to keep going with that line. Like, it's all up to you. Do you still like the line? Then keep the line. If you don't like the line anymore, then don't keep the line and change it. It's your art. You're only setting limitations on yourself that no one else is setting on you. So I'm not worrying about the perspective of the actual background. I'm just worrying about creating a really cool, interesting character. I'm trying to get my foundations and my muscle structure for my mannequin as structured as I can, so that I actually have a valid perspective line to go off of. So I'm thinking of all my basic elements, my basic shapes, all the little tips and tricks that I've learned are implemented as I draw to every part of the drawing. And then as I go in and refine it more and more, I get to choose what level of detail I'm going to have. In this case, I'm going to go with a slightly more anatomical design, just so I can have more of like that action pose type of thing. I don't like this leg right here. It's too static. So I'm going to move my knee up, and I'm going to have the bottom of my leg positioned differently, just to create more dynamic stance. So I don't like it like that, but I do like a little foreshortening in a comic book stance, so I'm going to go with a more foreshortened look. Okay, so that from there, I get to decide which of these feet is actually on the ground, or if they're both on the ground, or if one of them is lifted, one of them is grounded. So this is going to tell me exactly the perspective in which my elements around me are going to go. So in this case, I'm going to make it like a Muay Thai like type of like motion. So I'm going to have this foot off the ground. So this one's going to be off the ground, and this one's going to be the one that's grounded. I'm going to ground the foot, lifting the ankle and giving myself a little bit of depth. So now I know that that shape has this sort of basic element right here. This little tiny square that contacts with the ground is enough for me to be able to build the entirety of the scene. From just knowing that little patch, the perspective of that little patch is enough for me to be able to create a simple grid to give myself a horizon line, give myself some vanishing points, and then start drawing elements within my thing like gym bags and stuff like that based on this basic horizon line. Now I can add like punching bags, stuff like that in the background and match them to this, right? Now I have the guidelines that I need to like anchor them to the ceiling if I need to. Any of that information is already given to me by that little tiny patch right there. The moment that I grounded my character, I gave myself a standing to be able to draw anything that I want for them. But I need that knowledge of that basic perspective point, or that little tiny patch that was connected here. That is what gave us all this. That is what gave us all the guidelines to be able to draw everything else inside that scene. Be it a room, be it a dojo, be it mirrors, be it an alleyway, be it other people. Now I have a basis for that. So that is how you eventually find the perspective in your scenes. You go and you draw your character all cool with like, let's say we have like, I don't know, a bunny that's like a cyber cop. Cyber cop bunny, coming for you. Yeah. Has a gun too. And he's chubby. So we have Cyber Bunny right here. The moment that I decide to draw his feet, that is where I decide where the ultimate perspective is going to be for his character. Now, I can decide to draw his feet going down if I want to. And then that's going to make him look like maybe he's on a curved surface. I can make him look like he is just on a basic ground, but not flat. And then just giving this sort of element to the shape that I'm standing on. Or you can go ahead and do more dynamic posing. You can always position them looking forward as well. Let's do that. So this would be kind of like the most basic kind of pose that you would be able to get away with it being still in perspective, because you still have a connection point right here. And therefore, I can build a whole scene from there. So understanding just the way that a basic shape on the ground would interact with your perspective grid, and that being the feet of whatever you end up drawing, you can find the perspective for everything in a scene incredibly easy. Do I record my lives? I do record my lives. All of these are on YouTube. Well, actually, the good ones are. Not all of them. Like, I pick and choose which ones are catered to be on YouTube or not. Mostly because it's just, like, I draw a lot and I create a lot. So a lot of the times, we have a lot of repeat stuff. So whenever it's very repetitive, I just don't tend to upload it. Okay, so yeah, the YouTube is under the same name. So the next question was, how do you draw like trees and how do you draw foliage and stuff like that? So once you figure out your perspective for your scene, so again, we'll draw quick characters so that we can, let's draw one from behind. Right. So now we have a character that's looking from behind. My perspective lines are going to be based on my grounding. So that's based on that. And now let's say that this guy is just literally like walking down a lane with like foliage and stuff. Let's give him a hat. And he's standing still. So let's see, what could he be doing? He could be sipping on a lemonade. And his arm would be right there, right there, right there, right there, right there. Give him a collar. Give him a pattern to his shirt. And give him the top of his hat. So now Mr. Dude is chilling right here, sipping a lemonade from the lemonade stand that set up right there. And all that based on that little tiny patch that we drew. What's the number one important tips on material beginners should know? Expensive materials don't matter. That is the biggest thing that you guys should remember. Expensive materials mean absolutely nothing if you don't have the ability to be able to draw with them. So when you start, don't get expensive stuff. Like, don't get, I think the only thing that I would say you can spoil yourself on, and you should, is your sketchbooks. Your sketchbook should be the one thing that you guys actually like spend like a decent money on. And I'm not saying spend like $20, $30 on it. Get like a good quality sketchbook that opens up all the way. That is essentially the most important thing for me in a sketchbook, is that it actually lays flat. Right? Whenever you open it, it should lay flat. It should not have like the crinkles right here. God, I hate it when the sketchbook does that. It's like the most infuriating thing, like when that big crinkle happens in the middle, because you lose all that real estate. Like all that real estate, you just lose it. And when you try to scan it, it just doesn't work. So don't try to get books that open up all the way. The ones that I use are Danique and Illo. Those two brands are incredibly good. They hold watercolor really nice, and they sponsor me. So hey, if you guys, I don't get a kickback or anything from sales yet, but if you guys just know that they send me as many sketchbooks as I possibly could want. So that's beneficial. But they're also really good sketchbooks. So I don't like promoting things that don't really work. Can you draw someone walking a dog? Yeah, sure. Why not? Let's draw somebody walking a dog. So let's incorporate another character into our drawing. So if we have a character, right, and our character is going to be walking, and he's going to be walking his dog. So now that we have their feet, this one's not grounded, this one's lifted, this one's in movement. So this one's not going to tell us where our grounding is. This one is. This one seems to have a little bit of the actual ball of the foot on the ground. So knowing that little ball of the foot, I can give that a perspective in the form of a box, and then I can follow that to a vanishing point. That is going to give me all the information that I need for the rest of my scene. Have my horizon line now. Now I can decide where I draw my dog. So my dog can be on this side, can be on this side. Let's draw him over here. I know that this is essentially the bottom part of my character. So if I want my dog walking next to me, I'm going to have to draw him within that space. So as long as he's drawn within that space, he's going to look fine. So I'm going to draw my shapes. I'm using my knowledge of dog anatomy and stuff like that to, help me. Let's give them... And then you just have to have your leash. And your leash would probably be underneath your leg, because that's just how dogs are, and they like tangle you up. So that's how you would approach drawing another character within a character if you're adding a Kim to the scene. You would just find your character, find your perspective from your grounding point, and then build your character based on that. And little poop bags. And then everything in the background would just be conditional to whatever type of stuff you want to draw around them. You want to draw like little like bushes. Are they walking through a field of like trees? Maybe they're like pines. And a lot of this stuff that I know how to draw really quick is because I've just gone out and actually drawn gesturally everything. So me being able to draw like this is not magic work. It's a lot of just actually drawing from life and just seeing how I can just replicate those textures really quick. So foliage and elements like trees and stuff like that are going to be a lot of like sketchy lines that you're going to be drawing to replicate the texture of it. There's a bunch of different ways that you guys can do that. Things like flowers as well. Things like clouds. And very quickly, you can start adding a scene by just very lightly, gesturally drawing your things. But you got to go out and actually look at things like clouds and lights and lamps and rugs and trees and plants and flowers and birds and crap like that. And then you need to just build your mental library from there. Thank you, thank you, thank you. You're amazing. Well, you're welcome. I like to help people out. Like that is what I think is my calling in the art world. I was never very good at working for other people. So I knew that I wasn't going to be a good employee, right? I'm not going to be like the person but I ended up being a really good employee. I just got burnt by like a lot of companies that would just like hire us for like years at a time and then like let us go when we asked for like raises and stuff. So after a while, you just get tired of working for other people. And you guys might run into the same thing if you guys go into artwork for a living. So what I like to teach is not necessarily how do you get a job at this place or this other place. For me, it's more about teaching you guys how to actually learn to unlock the way that you guys think, the way that you guys see things, and actually have you guys understand the importance of your foundational work so that you guys can go out and actually implement what you guys want to create, be it being an employee, be it being like your own independent person. Whatever you guys want to do with your skills, it should benefit you and not benefit, an employer. How do you draw clothes with the shades and volume and stuff? Well, let me explain to you one thing. Like a lot of the people that come to me asking for help with shading, don't really understand how to build a shape. So shading becomes really hard, and explaining like light sources and stuff like that become really hard when you can't see something with volume. So let me explain. So whenever you're actually thinking of shading, most people think that it's just like a soft gradient type of thing, and all you got to do is do that and you get depth. And they're not wrong. Technically, that is the concept behind lighting, right? But in order to actually use lighting correctly, you need to understand that there's two types of shading, and there's several kinds of lights. There's spotlights, there's diffused lighting, which is like really soft lighting from all places, which is like the sun, right? So all over lighting, we have like targeted lighting, and all these things affect your things very differently. Let me explain the lighting first so you guys understand that better. So we'll put an eye as a general guideline, because a lot of people like to add highlights in their eyes. So if you had like a spotlight that was shining a general hard light onto our eyes, you would get just that same shape as a highlight, right? In this case, it's a little circle. You would get a little circle as a highlight. Cool. It would match whatever type of light source you are. If you have a squared light, what do you think happens? You get a square highlight. Because that's just a reflection of that light source. So that is how spotlights work for highlights, for lights. For diffused lighting, normally it means if you have a spotlight on an object like a sphere, you're going to get a very, very defined shadow. And it's normally going to be at the edges of wherever the light hits. That is going to be called a cast shadow. A cast shadow with an object, like when light comes from all directions, kind of like with the sun, those shadows become diminished a lot because all the lighting is essentially concentrating on everything except this little tiny blockage. So the light source is coming from all over except for that little tiny amount right there. So that is what happens with diffuse lighting like the sun. Now, there's two types of shadows as well. We have form shadows. Form shadows are the shadows that we normally add to like the nose and like the edges of the nose and to give like roundness to things, right? That's why they're called form shadows. Form shadows are the ones that are created to cast a form. Now, then we have, no, form shadows are like cast shadows are the shadows that happen when there's a light source and something is blocking it and it casts onto something else, aka the bottom of the nose. So whenever something's blocking it, and that's a shadow that's being created because this object is blocking, these tend to be hard shadows. So anything that is casting a shadow tends to be a really hard edge. If it's a form shadow, it tends to be soft. So those are the two different types of shadows, hard shadows and soft shadows. So if you get a grasp of those two, then realism becomes very attainable because the real world is not consistent of lines. There's no lines. So even something like a mouth, when you're drawing a mouth in a more like realistic sort of way, the lines that you're seeing are essentially just two elements creating a crease, right? They're creating a shadow because there's a crease between them. So things like your cheeks, and then the underside of the mouth tends to get a little bit of a line because there's a shadow from the lip element going onto your teeth. Right? All these are shadows and changes of hue. And then, so if you like to draw like this, it's very invaluable for you to understand a cast shadow from the lip versus a form shadow for the roundness of the lip. A cast shadow from the teeth, from the lip casting onto the teeth, and then you have a form shadow for the roundness of the lip. And that is just a constant thing that just repeats throughout your entire body. So you got to keep in mind the differentiation between them. An eyeball has the same thing. So you draw your shapes. The eye actually does have some lines because people put on mascara and shit like that. So whenever you put makeup on, you're actually delineating it, like you're giving like a guideline to your eyes. So sometimes there is lines that you draw. But the roundness of your eye, for example, would be a soft shadow because it's trying to differentiate the softness of it. There'd be a cast shadow from your eyelid going onto your eye. And then the eyeball itself would have shadows to create a round element to the eyeball shape. The bottom of your eye would also have a little bit of shadow because you're essentially shading a sphere with two eyelids in there. That is what an eyeball is. So keep that in mind when you are shading. If you are able to match both elements, both types of shadows together, your drawings are going to be better. Now, if you learn how to manipulate both types of lighting, then your drawings are going to be even better. So for example, let's do like a basic shadowing over this guy. We already gave this guy some shadows underneath. So therefore there has to be a light source roughly around right here. So we'll give this guy a light source right here. Okay. We'll make that look a little bit lighter by just darkening that a little bit and making that really dark. So now we have a light source. So what does that say about the rest of the drawing? Well, everything is going to be lit up from the top. So anything that I see, for example, here, this is a sphere with a flat side. So this flat side is going to be shaded. This side of my face would be shaded. This whole side of my body would probably be shaded. The light, maybe you would see a little bit on the edges, but most of my legs as well would be shaded. The bottom of this hand would be in shading. Maybe the top of the fingers would still have lighting, especially since I'm doing like some kung fu type of like hand gesture. The bottom of this arm would be shaded. The palm would be shaded because it would be blocked by the hands. Armpits would be shaded because it'd be blocked by my arms. And then you'd get a little bit of a shadow from the actual head, that being a cast shadow, therefore being strong, right? And then I go in with my cast shadows. What would cast a little bit of a shadow underneath the other ones? The shirt, the shorts. If I have like shoes and stuff like that, that would cast a shadow on the ground. So all that stuff would go in next. Then I would decide on like elements in my face. Like my eyebrows would probably cast a shadow over my eyes, a little bit under my chin, and maybe my mustache would create a little bit of a shadow as well as my nose. And just like that, I have my character basically shaded just by thinking of my basic shapes. Then we go on to the rest of the elements. In this case, the bag is getting mostly blocked, so all of this would be in shadows. Maybe the edge of it would be like a rim light type of situation. You would see a little bit of rim lighting. But this one right here, this one would be mostly lit up. So as you guys can see, that is how you literally use your basic shapes to start learning how to apply shadows to things. That is the process. You got to learn basic perspective, learn the limitations of your light sources and what they do and how they work, and then use your perspective to be able to map those items out within your shapes by using your subdivisions that you draw. The reason that I'm able to draw this edge is because I'm able to visualize this as a three-dimensional object, and I know that just the edge needs to be lit up because of the light source. So that is how it's easier for me to draw that. In this case scenario, this one right here on the ground, you would have the light source coming from here. It would hit probably about this much of the actual shape, and everything else would be in shadows. And it's a soft shadow, so I would just gradually blend it in. And that is going to be casting a slight shadow as well on the ground. And let's give it some holes as well, so it looks like I took it down. Okay, so that is how you essentially use your perspective and your lighting to be able to identify the things in a scene. Then you can start adding other elements within those perspective points. In this case, let's say I want some weights. I can draw some weights in there. £10. And just like that, you can keep on adding and adding and adding and adding and adding and adding to your whole scene until you have like everything that you need within it. And the more that you practice doing things like this, the more you're going to be able to draw things like elements like counters and things in perspective and things like that that you normally don't think about too much. You know, it's things that just come naturally from just drawing extra things in your life. Like learning how to actually manipulate your shapes to make things look like different things is going to be like a core focus for you in your career. Like you just need to learn how to do that. So if you don't go out and draw things in parking lots or draw things at the gym, seeing how they look from outside, you know why I am able to do this? You know why I'm able to do all this stuff, and I remember how to draw all this stuff because most of the time I was that weirdo that would be working out, and then like in between sets I would just be drawing things. Right? I'd just be looking at people, like, and not staring, but just like observing and just seeing how people were dressed, how people were like lifting things, how people look like when they flex their like muscles and stuff like that. So you constantly just get reassured with different things. And little by little, all those little things that you learn, like, come back and they give you the ability to do really cool mental drawings because you've observed it a lot. So if you're around it, it becomes a little bit easier. Yay! Sailor Scouts! Can you do a tutorial for the torso? I'm learning anatomy. Yeah, we have a little bit of time and a little bit of space. But while I do this, I'm noticing that there's like 400 people in the chat, but there's only 140 shares. Boo! You guys aren't paying your admission ticket. Your admission ticket to this class, my friends, if you guys don't know, is something very simple. It's not money. It's just a matter of sharing the stream and liking the stream. Liking it as much as you can so we normally get to like 50K or more likes. So let's get to that 50K mark. We're almost done with our video, so make sure to get through there. And if we guys can get me to at least 300 shares, that'd be amazing. Because I like to tell my goodbye message to as many people as I can every single time. But anyways, let's go back to our lesson. Torsos. Torsos are actually really easy. Yeah, I know that everybody says that, right? Then they go like, here is like a circle, and then you add like the lines, and then you have a torso. But it really is almost that easy in the way that I milk it out, right? The way that I explain it is really, really simple. It's, if you can draw a circle, you can draw a circle inside of that circle. Cool. So once you learn how to draw a circle inside of your circle, you learn how to manipulate that a little bit. So you start like bending it a little. And then eventually you get like this little beanbag. This little beanbag shape is awesome because you can use this little crevice as the initial part of your rib cage. And therefore you already have a bunch of dynamic like shaping from this. Your collarbone goes up this little midline and it creates a little baseball diamond at the top of your rib cage. Then at the bottom of your rib cage, you already know where your hips are going to be. You just got to decide how big they want to be. By drawing a little circle inside of that circle, splicing it in half. And just like that, you have a torso that you can add legs to, arms to, and a head to. Very easy. So as long as you're able to get to the point of drawing a beanbag and getting confident enough to draw the subdivisions inside of it, you can turn any beanbag into a rib cage and draw pretty much any shape you want. So that is how you draw a torso. Getting a simplified version of that would be just drawing a circle or a sphere, drawing that, and drawing a cylinder. So essentially drawing a balloon stuck to a stick. That is your rib cage. A stick for your hip bones, because the hip bones are just a cylinder that have their little angles turned in. So it's a normal cylinder, but just angle those in, you're good. That is literally the hip bones. Easiest way you can possibly think of. And that works perfectly for muscly legs. And that works really nice for standard, like stylized legs. It works for either one of them. So you can draw hip bones like this and be perfectly okay with your simple cartoon drawings or your more anatomically based drawings. That is how your legs connect, and that is how you should learn it. Literally a cylinder. That's all it takes. And then you have your balloon, that's just your rib cage. And then this middle part right here, that's your squish zone. That is where you add your body fat or any sort of like abs that you might want, and you contour it. That is your squishy zone. Your squishy zone is where you add your body fat. And then your collarbone and your arm sockets come from understanding your collarbone. Once you understand your collarbone, your arms become a little bit easier to learn. And the same thing happens with the arms. You can draw any sort of arm coming out of those positions, big and buff or skinny or any style that you want. And once you understand where they come from, then it's easy because it's going to look right, regardless of what you draw. Because now you know the positioning. How do you grasp the arm that's hidden? By drawing through your shape. So if you have a sphere, you just draw the middle, draw your rib cage, right? Figure out your collarbone by drawing this little baseball diamond on top. Connect your two dots on the side. Now, if you want to know where this arm is going to be, draw a circle underneath the front one. This same circle should be matched on the other side. But what you're doing here, you're drawing through your shape, right? You have your arm over here and you have your other arm through your shape. What you got to do is you got to get used to drawing around your elements, right? And understanding how to like draw elements that are behind elements that are in front. Because if you can't do that, character design becomes really hard. Because you're guessing most of the time. And you don't want to guess. So in order to get to that level of understanding, all you got to do is learn how to draw circles inside of circles, and then choose a point, another point, and connect them. And then get more complicated. Draw a circle inside of circle, draw a circle on this side, draw a circle on this side, and connect them with a cylinder. And now you are understanding slowly how to visualize both sides of your shape while retaining your initial shape. How to draw muscles. Muscles are all independently shaped. There's no like real super concrete way to just learn how to draw muscles in general. You have to like divide it up into different parts of the body. And then different muscles have different connection points and they work differently. So you have to keep that in mind. And there's no like one single trick to learning muscles. It's more like you have to study them. And it also really helps when you work out yourself. When you go and you actually lift weights on your own, you start understanding where your muscles fall. So a person that doesn't work out would not understand that you have like a tricep and you get like this little tiny like division between your bicep and your tricep. And then that goes into the little pointy part of your arm, which is your elbow. And that's where you're pivoting from. So your arm pivots from here. So anything that you do with your arm is going to move according to your elbow, not the middle of your elbow, not the middle of your arm. It's your elbow. So once you understand how your body moves, it's easier for you to be able to position them in any way you need. Wow. Okay. So once you understand, it's easier to manipulate. But before you understand, it's going to be really hard and you're going to be guessing a lot. So the whole point is to stop guessing. right? Understanding that your arms, for example, come at the top of your collarbone and they pivot from the top of your little collarbone right here, is a very important thing to know, right? That regardless of how you have your arm, you have a nice connection point where it always ends up is very cool to know. So you stop guessing where the arms are supposed to go. Now you have the ability to stylize them. So now you can go in and stylize them all you want. Maybe give them a claw. Give them like gigantic arms, like whatever you feel like doing at that point is going to look right because it's coming from the right place. And second, you're basing it off of knowledge and your foundations. So you know that it's going to look right. All right. With that being said, I believe we have talked enough about our topic today, adding perspective to your characters and surroundings. And it was a really fun one because I normally don't get to talk about this to a large crowd. Normally we lose about like 3/4 of our members whenever we talk about anything like perspective or fundamentals because you guys think it's boring. But hopefully we were able to debunk that and you guys can actually see things a little bit more entertaining, seeing a little bit more fun and seeing the possibilities and the endless possibilities that come with just understanding your visual elements like this a little bit more. Well, with that being said, thank you guys so much for everything. Let's add one more icon to our little emoji list and we will make it, I don't know, a little like boba drink or something. Yeah. We'll make it a little frappuccino. So I'll try to work on making these emojis that I do, and I'll just like post them for you guys and make little stickers and stuff like that if you guys feel like you want something like that. If you guys have not yet, please go follow my friend Star Kaiju. He is trying to get to 1,000 followers so that we can have him stream and do the digital side of things for like this, like color theory and things like that, like inking. All that stuff that I don't normally go over, we want to make him do it. We want to make, because he's awesome. He's an amazing storyteller. So please make sure to go follow him so we can get him to 1,000 so you guys can see what awesome things he's going to bring to you guys. Like I promise he is just as good as I am at what he does. But he has a different focus. He has more of a digital side of things. So please go follow him, help me out. He only needs about like 200 more people to help him out so he can go live. So if you guys can do that right now, oh my God, that could be your biggest thanks for me for teaching you guys something new. So please do me that favor, be my friends, support me so that I can support you guys as well. Other than that, that's going to be it for today's lesson. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Thank you for being my sketching buddies. And like I like to say at the end of every stream, if you guys want to support, please go buy my books. My books are the way that I pretty much sustain myself. So make sure to buy that. I'm going to have a couple new ones coming out soon. The Big Book of Derpy Animals is going to be coming relatively soon. The Big Book of Derpy Animals, and it's also going to be the Big Book of Little Lessons. So that one's going to be once we finish this sketchbook. So once we finish this sketchbook, I'm scanning it in, taking all the best lessons, and I'm going to scan them in, make them a book, and then call it the Big Book of Little Lessons. In preparation for my How to Draw book later on in the year called How to Draw Everything, Volume 1, Fundamentals. But that is something for a different day, different story, different timeline. Have a wonderful day, everybody. I hope you guys it's Thursday today, right? I think it's Thursday today. So if it's Thursday, Thursday. I think it's Wednesday. I don't even know what day I live in, but whatever day it is, I want you guys to go outside. I want you guys to go love a little, show some kindness, teach someone something, be happy in general, just love. I want you guys to go outside and live a little. It's still early in the day, relatively for everybody in the world. You guys can go out and actually enjoy some sunlight. So get out, get some vitamins, get some sunlight, and enjoy your day. I want you guys to go outside and also laugh a little. And that means go find a cool joke to laugh at, a story that you love, or a movie that you love, or a person that you love, and get a nice big laugh out of them. And at the end of the day, we are artists all. So if you guys want to get better, don't only tune in to me, but you got to go out and you got to draw a lot. Have a wonderful day, everybody. Thank you guys so much, and I will see you guys in the next video. Catch all of these videos back on YouTube. If you guys are not there yet, please go subscribe. Let's get me to the 100,000 followers mark over there so I can get my plaque and become the awesomest uncle in the world. So take care, everybody. Love you all. Bye. Yes, that is him, by the way.